Welcome back to Late Edition. Could the CIA leak investigation and other setbacks cripple President Bush's international and domestic agendas? Joining us here in Washington with perspective is former Clinton Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, and joining us from his home state of Kansas, Republican Senator Sam Brownback. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee, among other committees. The two are leading a bipartisan effort, a new bipartisan effort to promote human rights around the world. We're going to get to that momentarily. Good to have both of you here on Late Edition. Thanks very much for joining us. Madam Secretary, I'll start with you. The CIA leak, you've watched it like all of us have, the indictment against Louis Scooter Libby on Friday. You served in a White House that was in crisis during the Lewinsky impeachment matter, all the Whitewater investigation. Is this a White House now that's in crisis? And if it is, how does that affect its international policy?
Well, it's very hard to judge what's going on inside, but I'm very troubled by the image that we are now portraying internationally. This is not a good time for the president to be weakened because there are so many international issues out there. I am obviously not capable of discussing the indictments, nor do I think it's appropriate, but I think that it is important to note that we have a very large international agenda, and there are always dangers when a president is weakened, and this is very different from what was going on during the Clinton administration.
Why is this very different?
Because this is something that has, the Clinton problem was a problem for the president internally, but this has international ramifications.
Because at that time, the then President Bill Clinton was accused of perjury, obstructing justice in the Paula Jones sexual harassment. So that escalated and became the basis of his being impeached in the House of Representatives and then acquitted in the U.S.
But it was
Senate.
a personal issue, and it never affected our foreign policy. This issue, as it has been described, not by the special prosecutor, who I think made a very important point about saying that the Iraq War should not be discussed through this, but nevertheless there are questions about that. So I just think it's different, but I am mostly worried about it in terms of what it does to our international position.
Senator Brownback, in effect the whole world is watching, and we're being seen right now around the world discussing these issues. How worried are you? Do you agree with the former Secretary of State?
Well, this is a serious matter, but I think we go on with the agenda, and I think you allow the legal process to work its will and its way. The indictment has been reported out. There's a process that will follow, and we'll see what happens through that. Meanwhile, I think we have to continue to maintain a very aggressive domestic and robust foreign policy agenda. Just had the constitutional vote in Iraq. That is significant. You've got elections coming up in Iraq. That's significant. You've got the potential for us starting to pull troops out in the first half of next year. Very significant. I think we've got to continue to move those forward as these legal issues move on forward on their own track.
There are some, Senator Brownback, who suggest, especially the aftermath of 2,000 American troops now having died in the course of the war in Iraq, that the upcoming trial of Louis Scooter Libby, if in fact there is a trial, no plea agreement down the road, or the charge is dismissed for whatever reason, if there's a trial, the trial eventually will be about the justice, the nature of this war. Are you among those who believe such a trial could lead to that kind of discussion?
I don't know that it will, and I think it's a little early to be able to tell that. The basis of the discussion, of course, is part of the basis that was the war was contended upon, and that is the weapons of mass destruction. I think it's obvious we have not found weapons of mass destruction, and everybody stated that. But we've continued to move forward on this, saying that it is important for Iraq to be free. It is an important beachhead in the region for freedom. It is an important breaking up of the terrorist networks and their association with Saddam Hussein, and we did find terrorists working there on that soil. So I think those are important things for us to continue to move forward and not discount the incredible sacrifice that hundreds of thousands of soldiers, and indeed over 2,000, have given their lives in this very important war on terrorism and war for freedom.
Do you feel, Madam Secretary, that the American public was lied to by the Bush administration going into the war?
I think that all the facts were not out, and that is very clear now, because there was an agenda about going into this war, and I think that there needs to continue to be a debate. I have said that this was a war of choice, not of necessity, but now we have to make things come out right. That's the necessity and not the choice.
But as you know, many Democrats say the president and his top aides, the vice president, lied deliberately manipulated intelligence in order to justify going to war. Are you among those who make that charge?
I am very concerned about what happened because I think it's unclear as to why and how we went into this war, but most unclear, and where I think there is a great indictment to be made, is how the war has been prosecuted. And I actually think that the greater indictments going on, though the legal ones are serious, is of the national security strategy of the Bush administration. I think I am very worried about that. And this week we put out a plan on how to fight terrorism, a comprehensive, integrated plan, which I think is something that has been missing.
Let's talk about that. Senator Brownback, what about Syria? Its role in the insurgency in Iraq, its role now accused top officials in the Syrian government being involved in the assassination of a former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri and 22 other people in Beirut. What should the United States government be doing as far as Syria is concerned and President Bashar al-Assad right now?
I think we should be taking a very aggressive stance towards Syria, not allowing them to continue to support terrorist groups that operate in Syrian soil and operating then, or that base out of Syrian soil and operating in Iraq. I think we should take a very aggressive and strong international position condemning the Syrian government for their role and their work. I think this is a weakened Syrian regime, and I think it's a very problematic Syrian regime for us and for people in the region. Well, if I want to back up to an earlier point, if I can, real quick. We are where we are right now in the war on terrorism. If we pull back and decide, okay, this was not the right thing to do, and so we're going to drop it all, the problems for the United States multiply. We have to see this on through to a successful conclusion. If we fail and the terrorists believe they drove us out of Iraq for whatever reason they want to cite, it will spawn more terrorism. We must be successful in that region.
Let me let the former secretary respond to that. There are some Democrats who say cut and run, not using those words necessarily, but just get out. Better to get out right now than wait, and another 2,000 American troops will die in the course of the next 2 years or less. What do you say with the hand that you have right now?
Well, I'm not one of the people that believes in setting deadlines. I believe that it is very important to look at a strategic redeployment of our forces and to take a very careful look at what is going on. But nobody is advocating stopping the fight against terrorism. In fact, I think it's very important to have a strong tactical approach to killing the terrorists and getting rid of various cells, and at the same time having a much longer term approach in terms of the problems that create a lot of terrorists, which frankly is one of the things that Senator Brownback and I want to look at generally about how to improve the situation in a number of countries in terms of the situation there, so that we can look at a broader humanitarian approach to many international problems.
All right, we're going to pick up that thought, but first we'll take a quick break. When we come back, I'll ask Secretary Albright, Senator Brownback about the problems of genocide and their new initiative to promote global human rights. Stay with us.